call the North Plains Planning Commission meeting for November the 11th, to order at 6 o'clock. Please rise and repeat the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please do the roll call.
Thank you. Chair King,
Here.
Commissioner House,
Here.
Commissioner Canodell,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Para,
Here.
Commissioner Nunnekamp,
Here.
and Commissioner Labonte is excused this evening. Your ex officio is City Councilor Katie Reddy. Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4 is public comment. This time is available for anyone in the audience or Zoom for any comments of planning commission business that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone? No one in the audience? Anyone on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
All right, item number 5 is approval of the minutes for January the 14th, 2026. Any changes, corrections?
I had one question.
Okay,
In the minutes, I know that Councilor Reddy read a statement and I missed the part of the statement that at the beginning, I think you clarified whether it was a statement from you personally or whether it was a statement representing the entire city council.
It was my
Okay,
personal.
would it be okay if we reflected that in the minutes?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
I usually ask when someone reads
I
something
think
for
you
a
said
copy of
that.
it,
I just missed it.
but
Yeah, that's, I just quickly turned to the page because.
and I
Yeah,
haven't. So, yeah,
that's my update.
I will make that adjustment.
if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the minutes for the February, or for the January 14th, planning commission with changes noted.
Second. I've got a motion by Commissioner Miller for the second by actually Commissioner Para. For approval of the January 14th minutes with modification. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed. Thank you. We move on to item number 6, is unfinished business. We have
None at this time, Chair. We'll be covering the majority of it in a work session following this meeting.
any of the planning commissioners unfinished business? And we'll move on to item 7, is new business. Do we have any new business?
No significant new business at this time, Chair.
Okay. Commissioners, any new business? Hearing none. Move on to the land use applications and the city project monthly report. I've noticed a couple new signs in town, but I've not seen any sign permits. Did I miss them, or we're not getting reports on sign permits? And
Could you specify the location of the signs?
one is the Columbia Bank sign. The other is the Splinter Alley that's now in front of Hobbs Fitness for 2.
So the Columbia sign was previously approved. They took some time. It was approved quite a while ago. And they took some time
That
to
was
install.
approved to go to Umpqua or back to Columbia Bank?
Sorry,
Was that approved for the Umpqua or back to Columbia Bank?
they got an approval for Umpqua and then they got an approval back to Columbia.
Okay.
And then you said there was a new sign for Splinter Alley at the old Hobson's location. I was not aware of that. I will follow up with them.
Is there any other signs that?
What about that school going in right next to that sign that went up from River? Or, okay, what they came before.
Did they, for the learning school?
Yeah,
They got a sign permit for the learning school?
For this school on Glencoe Road?
Yeah.
Yes, that was a change out with an existing sign up.
Yeah, fitness center. Gym or
the
whatever.
fitness center, yes, that was an approved sign permit in December, I believe.
It probably just takes a while for them to get the signs up. All right, any other questions or comments on the permits and the 3J report? Okay, hearing none. We have, I thought I saw in place there was an update on the, oh, excuse me, there it is. I'm looking right up. Okay, so we move on to item 9 is the planning commission comments. We have item A is the UGB PAC meeting 1 update. I went to that meeting. There was, like a lot of first meetings, a lot of information, just catching up to bring everybody else up to speed. There was introductions of the members, some ideas of what they liked about North Plains. And then they did kind of a project overview and then went through the process that they were gonna do, the meeting plans, went over the vision and guiding principles, discussed existing conditions and what the next steps of the process were gonna be. Pretty general. There was 14, at least a list of 14 PAC members and then some ex officios that represented either DLCD or Washington County, and then some of the landowners in expansion areas. I did bring up concern that there were 2 city council members on the list and only 1 planning commission. And I mentioned this to the city manager and to the mayor that since I've been on the planning commission and any of these type of meetings, PAC meetings and stuff, that's usually 1 and 1 or 2 and 2. So he said, the mayor suggested it would be a discussion at city council, but I never did hear any results from that.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor and I consulted with the city attorney on the matter, and council, as a result of their last meeting, chose to name Councilor DeForge as the representative to the PAC to be at the meeting. And then Councilor Weber to be the alternate when Councilor DeForge can't be there. So there should just be 1 city councilor participating in the meeting moving forward, but that'd be Councilor DeForge.
Okay, thank you. Was concerned that there was only 14 and was first meeting and some did not show up, some showed up late. There was, I think, 2 business members and one they thought was online, but never heard anything, so I don't know if they were. So, and I know there were some others, a resident missing, and not sure about one of the relook people, and so it's just kind of sad that we're having this group going and we can't get the participation. I'm sure there's people out there that want to be involved in it, and I would hope that we would reach out to them, make sure that they want to engage, if not, find a replacement for them. The other thing is that most of the people that were there, I thought were fairly open-minded about what the process was and wanted to learn about it. There was a few that were a little opinionated, and they came from city council, which I was not happy about. So, but I would hope that that discussion happened too. They should be a little more open-minded because they are the final decision people on that. So, any questions of the PAC meeting? Okay.
Sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
Do they have a follow-up meeting? Plan?
Yeah, and I'll
So the next PAC meeting is tentatively scheduled for late March. We don't have a date certain yet. The project team is working on putting together concepts, and as that progresses, we'll narrow down the date range for that next meeting, but it'll be most likely late March.
Go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
Do you guys move forward if you don't have a forum, or is there a forum set for that?
I don't believe that there is a forum, it's just a group, so it's not. Has to be an official number.
I was just curious if they're the decision makers that.
So this is an
You want a certain
advisory
amount of
body.
You want a certain amount of participation.
Because it is an advisory body, there is not quorum. So it's not a decision-making body, they're purely advisory to the project.
I have a question. Is it possible to have alternates for some of the people that can't make it?
Yes, for the ex officios, everyone has an alternate, as is standard practice for these advisory bodies. There's not alternates for members that represent a resident or another named seat.
Yeah, I know that I think the boards all have. I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah, all boards have alternates.
One was. Okay, there's nothing else on that. Is there any other planning commission comment? Hearing none. Is there a welcome, Councilor Redding? And any comment from city council?
Council Redding here. Just the biggest one is there is still an opening for Councilor Fage's position. It ends December 31st of this year. The applications are open through noon on Friday. For anyone interested in applying.
And anything from the planning commission for city council? None? All right. Here. Item 11, staff comments.
Thank you, Chair. To start off, we already discussed the next PAC meeting will be in late March. We are also convening a technical advisory committee to meet a few times throughout the process, as well as some community focus groups as scoped for that project as well. So there will be more public engagement coming up soon, and we'll keep this body up to date as those opportunities become available. We are also keeping our eye, of course, on the legislative session. We're in a short session right now, but we know that land use legislation happens long session, short session. So staff is keeping an eye on that as things develop. Ongoing planning, we do have some open code enforcement cases that are being worked on, as well as one application for variance is currently in incomplete status. I'm hoping that's going to be an administrative decision, but hopefully that will come through in the next couple months and we will be able to see that project move forward. Something I wanted to bring to this body, it may become a discussion for business in future, is some comprehensive plan compliance. It's been a topic at the county level with other city planning staff. The topic of citizen or committees for citizen involvement, which is a branch of the state planning goals. In our comprehensive plan, we do have a requirement for this body, the Planning Commission, to serve as our committee for citizen involvement. And in our plan, it calls for some annual reporting and some advanced measures to ensure involvement. So staff will be looking into that. We may be coming back to you for discussion or further action on that as we dig more into how we can do better community involvement, both in North Plains and in the county, broadly speaking. I have some news about our downtown improvement plan. I know this body was really heavily involved in pushing that forward a couple of years ago. We were able to convene a group in January and talk about the potential formation of a downtown association, and that will help those downtown businesses to advocate for themselves, access potentially more funding, stronger networks of like-minded folks in downtowns in Oregon. The city staff will be providing technical assistance as that group looks at the possibility of moving forward with forming an independent nonprofit. So we're excited to see what happens with that group. And something I know Bill is maybe going to talk a little bit about,
on March 2nd, the city council will be having a work session to talk about potential changes to city charter as it relates to land use decisions. Bill, do you want to share any more information about that?
Thank you, Rowan. Yeah, so yeah, March 2nd, work session, 6 p.m. I'm working with the city attorney on a work session for city council that addresses basically that in part takes a look at the charter change that the city of Sherwood recently did in January regarding some subtle language changes in the charter, but it does kind of touch on and sort of involve the issue of voter approved annexations. I went to the WEA Land Use and Housing Committee meeting last week, heard from the mayor and the city attorney about what they did, what the charter vote was and why, and they showed the new language and the old language. And it's odd to me, is the bottom line. So, but that's why I'm having the city attorney lead this, because it's kind of it's an interesting thing, but there's been interest expressed in particular by the mayor about looking into this and whether or not the city of North Plains may want to look deeper into that. So that's the topic, but it does ultimately involve annexations and growth. So I bring that to you that that work session might be a topic of interest for you to be aware of.
Anything else?
That's all from staff. Thank you.
Any questions, staff from the planning commission? Hearing none, if there is no other planning commission business, our next regular meeting will be on March 11th, 6 o'clock here. And with that, we'll adjourn at 6:07. We want to move in right into our work session then. Yeah. We're gonna need any roll call or anything like that, are we? Okay.
I did note in the minutes that we have Heather Austin in attendance, so.
Yeah, she was gonna try to be on Zoom, but she didn't think she was gonna.
Oh, Heather Labonte, you mean?
Yeah, excuse me.
She's on.
Yeah. And as far as the workshop, it's the discretion of the Councilor Redding if you want to stay here. So you don't need to go to the workshop if you don't want to. You're welcome to stay.
I would love to say this is
Okay,
my
good.
fourth meeting.
Okay.
Well, I think this is my fourth meeting this month because I'm covering quite a bit for my daughter's possible surgery, so it's okay. I'd like
Okay.
to go.
Okay, all right, good. Thank
Is that
you.
okay?
Yeah,
Thank you all.
I was just giving you a pass. I could go on.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So we are covering, once again, a topic this body is now very familiar with, zoning and development code updates. And at this time, we are getting a little more involved in the process. We've been through a needs identification process. We've gone through several requests for assistance from the Transportation Growth Management Program and DLCD. And now we're coming back to local visioning and strategizing to fund updates at a local level. We started in January with evaluating a mix of priorities and resources that would be needed to do updates. Staff then went and worked with Heather Austin from 3J Consulting to develop 3 different scopes of work that encompass levels of investment and resources put into projects in code updates. And today you guys will consider those scopes of work, consider what feels appropriate, if amendments are needed or adjustments. And then eventually we will move forward a recommendation to City Council or another joint work session to further discuss the matter. Ultimately, the hope being to nail down a pathway to conducting updates that this body deems necessary. So beginning off with scenario A as prepared, is a update that focuses on legislative fixes for compliance with recent bills that have been passed and updates to one or two key issue areas. We identified non-conforming uses and structures and mixed use as being the highest priorities for this body and for staff, and suggest that those be the updates that are focused on first. This would be a smaller project, potentially using the TGM Small Cities Model Code that is coming out later this year. It's just a great resource to allow us to take language that has already been vetted by the state and plug that into our code. There's limited public involvement involved with a process that is mostly focused at technical fixes. So we would be following the procedures as laid out in our type 4 application process. The cost and time frame for scenario A is around $5,000 to $10,000, mostly using city staff with some assistance from consultants, and would take less than 1 year to accomplish. Scenario B builds on considerably to scenario A. So that's going to address those technical legislative fixes, as well as 3 to 4 key issues. So those non-conforming, mixed use, and then adding on, we heard a lot of concern about the neighborhood community zone and the IPU zone. Those are both things that we could address. If there were other areas that rose to the top of the concern level, we could also swap out 1 or 2 of those and address those areas of concern. This is going to require a bit more investment in terms of time to develop code language, making sure that we are compliant with ourselves and with state law, and then making sure that everything is consistent throughout the code. So there's a little bit more investment there in terms of time to make sure that the code is well written and effective for the purposes that we're trying to achieve. This also requires a little bit more public engagement because we're going to be touching more areas of the code that directly impact residents and businesses. Changes to zoning uses, dimensional standards and whatnot are very impactful to landowners, and it's important that we include people who might be affected in determining what those changes are. We would likely have this body serve as an advisory committee throughout the process of developing these updates to make sure that we are compliant with that goal 1 citizen involvement at the state level. This would be primarily executed by consultant staff with a lot of input from city staff guiding them. The approximated cost is somewhere around $50,000 to $70,000, and this would take 1 year to 1.5 years to accomplish. And then scenario C, this is the most ambitious scenario that involves those technical legislative fixes and then some more involved upgrades to the code, larger areas. So use specific standards like a new mixed use zone, like looking at certain industrial uses or multifamily development standards, looking at zoning districts as a whole, deciding if the neighborhood community zone needs a large upgrade or needs to be reclassified into a different zone, or that land rezoned into different zones. Potentially developing new zones for mixed use could be accomplished with this level of an update. With all of that said, that requires significant resources to look into code development because we aren't going to be pulling from pre-developed code. That's going to require new code to be written. It's going to require new code to be integrated into the code, the existing code. And then if we're looking at things like map updates for rezoning or new zones, that's going to require GIS support and additional applications. High public engagement for this process. This is a process where we're likely going to have an external advisory committee, public community surveys, opportunities for people to really get involved because this is going to touch a lot of our residents, a lot of our landowners and businesses, and we want to make sure that if we are changing in big ways what people can do with their property, that they're involved. This would be almost entirely consultant executed because of the scale. Would cost somewhere in the realm of $120,000 or more, and could be a 2 up to 3 year process to do really wholesale updates to the code. With that said, and I can revisit any of these slides for more information to go back through in more depth, but I want to give this body time to discuss. We'd really be interested in figuring out which scenario or level you're interested in. If there's anything we've missed in terms of your concerns with the code, and if there's anything you would like to see change with our approach. And then Heather is also available for questions, especially if you have any questions about legislative fixes and technical fixes, as well as anything to do with cost, consultant involvement, public engagement. We're here to help you with those questions.
Well, I guess the first thing that I would say is that obviously the legislative compliance is priority one. And is obviously the number one thing in all of the scenarios. And so I guess that's just something that's gotta happen. So budgeting, that's just part of the deal. So I guess I would like to get a little more information on what those are and how that affects the rest of the project that we're looking at.
That's a great question.
No, you have to turn it, yes, light it up, the green light will pop on.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, it's pretty loud too. I'm gonna just move it a little bit. So I did try to relay in the bottom of the memo the most recent legislation. A lot of it pertains to housing and what types of review processes you can use and how the city operates. It's pretty broad stroke that the state is changing from a more planning commission or design review board kind of process to staff level for almost all residential type review. So I know that that was one of the pieces in the concern of code updates was residential projects like multi-unit and where they can be located and how they mix with commercial. So like focusing on a mixed use. But I wanted to be clear that there are some changes that the legislature has put into place that will limit our ability to make those changes, at least in the near term. You probably saw that there's a few sunset clauses in there. So the legislature said, let's try this for 7 years and see how it goes and see if we want to re-up it. All that said, the reason they pulled that model code for small cities off the state website and they're doing a update to it is because it doesn't comply with a lot of that current legislation. So the city of North Plains would be well in its right to wait a little bit until that code is available and then wholesale use large portions of that because they'll be completely in compliance with the state legislation. So if the focus was to make sure you're in legislative compliance, there's some deadlines like July 1st of 2026 that some things change. You can apply state law directly on that date if you don't have your code updated. So there's no penalty to not having your code updated by that date. There's one provision for childcare that has to be updated by 2027. So you do have the time to wait for the model code for that one. So if if the top priority is legislative compliance, I would highly recommend waiting for that model code to come through because a lot of that work will be done.
And I know that I'll let our subcommittee speak on more is that, in any of these scenarios, our big concern, I believe, will be getting things done. And, doesn't matter if we're in scenario A, B, or C, there's some things that we would like to see done before a year. Because we've been heard from city council, we've heard from the planning commission, from staff, these, should be updated. And so is there steps along the way that we can get some code changes without going through the whole duration? I mean, I know that if you do everything, it's gonna take this long, but is there ways to get certain things done in steps? So that we're not waiting till the very end?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I believe that fits most with scenario A, which is, if we're looking at doing a Band-Aid for one or two key areas, key subsections, I think the top of the pile for this body and city council is non-conforming uses and structures, from what I've heard. that is something that we could address as a, you know, spot fix or something that these bodies view as urgent. I would caution you against coming up with a list of spot fixes, especially when we have a resource such as the Small Cities Model Code coming in late summer. While some things may feel very urgent, it's going to be more resource efficient to address those in one swoop when we have a large body of work already done for us by the state.
If I can just tack onto that, if non-conforming uses is the top thing or definition for mixed use or, you know, whatever the top issue is, based on, you know, city council and planning commission's review of the code items, those pieces may not necessarily be direct plug and play model code language like the legislative changes. So that does make sense to start chipping away at those. You have your monthly meetings, you have your staff person, you know, depending on the workload of what's coming in private development that's being reviewed, there's probably time to do work sessions on a topic or to and hold like a public work session like this, advertise it. We're talking about non-conforming uses. Maybe reach out to some of your applicants who've gone through it recently and try to build some engagement into your meetings that you're already having. I think you could definitely start with like a topic at this point.
Commissioner Dell?
Yeah, so we kind of came up with a scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. Based off what we kind of thought needed to be done, so. Well,
Well, this is from our code committee that the three of us, and we talked about all the different scenarios that were laid out in the 3 scenarios. And we felt that in talking about the code that we felt like we needed to update and touch on, we're gonna almost touch on every piece of code. I mean, because one touches another, touches another, touches another. So we didn't feel that scenario 1 or 2 or A or B was really the right fit, and maybe we needed to ask for scenario 3 or C. Because we will be touching almost every piece of it.
And I think that's definitely true based on what I've heard speaking with your staff. And you can always phase it also. It doesn't have to all happen at one time.
And we
So-
still want to be able to keep our small code group that we bring to the planning commission.
Mhm.
And then planning commission gathers with 3J. And we're hoping that maybe some of that upfront work that we bring to the table will help make that process go quicker. And address some of those issues that we have or concerns that we have. And then you can help bring that in alignment.
Yeah. And help prioritize maybe a little bit too, like, okay, here's the laundry list. If we do these things, they sort of interact really largely in the code, and then the others could follow, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we were just concerned about, not asking for really what we felt was our need was to begin with, that we need to approach council and stuff with that. And it's a long-term thing. It's not something we're gonna hammer out in 6 months or something.
I would also encourage you to remember that as we go through this process, we might address, you know, a large chunk, 30% or 50% of the code, and be able to go back to TGM or DLCD with a smaller request for funding, and they might be willing to fund that. And then we can do things in parallel and get things done quicker. So, you know, phasing and smartly going after additional funding might be able to, you know, make that more attractive for our agencies to fund.
and so we were kind of like thinking scenario C, I guess, or scenario, we call it scenario 3, is to ask for like a $200,000 for a 3-year kind of thing, commitment from the city council to kind of a long-term plan to give us, so we don't have to keep doing this every time we get so far with something and then not be able to do it, to kind of figure out that, and then be able to kind of start with our deal and go where it goes. Because when we sat down with the code, like Doug's talking about, all of a sudden we were over here then again. So then it's like, okay, but now we gotta go here, change this because this kind of changes it, so it gets all over the place, so.
Well, I think one of the things too is, I can understand the concept of bringing it down to an ABC scenario because of the commitments and the involvement with citizen involvements and stuff. But I know that every time we talk about a specific code, we look at it as a priority one and would like to get something done about it. And we don't want to wait 6 months to a year to get one thing done. As we look at like the discussion with the Downtown Association, Business Association, and the possible grants and improvements, how do we want the downtown to look? And, as we get closer to that kind of thing, right now, we went through the green light deal and we got screwed by the state of Oregon that was supposed to be a commercial aspect, and now there's technically no commercial. It's some kind of physical use for themselves. And so we're gonna run into the same thing in C1 in the downtown core. And so it's all based on this conditional use thing. And so I think we need to have, as one of our priorities is C1 is that there is no residential on the main floor and only residential on additional floors above the main floor, and determine what our downtown core is, even if it's through a rezoning or something. But if we don't do something, we're gonna be left behind and we're gonna have things that we don't want. And there's other little fixes. One of the other things is there's the question about marijuana facilities and is it walking distance, is it straight line distance? And, that's kind of, as far as I'm concerned, that's more of a policy kind of thing. Is if the city, and the council want marijuana facilities, then walking distance is gonna allow more opportunities than non-walking distance. But our code is left kind of vague as, is it a balloon or is it straight line distance or walking distance? It doesn't really say it. It was, all the issues about what was done, but really wasn't done. And so some of these little fixes need to get taken care of. And so I'd like to see everything taken care of course, and that's, that might be scenario D, let's do it all. But, as we move, I'll bring it up again, the neighborhood community zone was just a holding zone. It wasn't supposed to be a standalone zone and never got developed. And that's shame on us. And now we've got, we have it. And I don't want to see us coming into any potential urban growth expansion and not be ready for it. So I want to see something done about that. And that may be the, like I say, the longer term fix for it, but I would like to see at least some progress made on that.
Well, we were just thinking about just freeze the NC zone, so maybe we don't work on it at all, just freeze it, whatever.
Moratorium.
Yeah, right, we
They'll
don't,
do it for others.
there is no more NC zone. It is what it is, they have it, but, and then we don't have to spend money on doing it, so.
Can I just ask a clarifying question between B and C?
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of words on this, but the only ones I can see different is rezone, new zone. Is that really the only difference between B and C is rezone and new zone?
No, it would be a more comprehensive whole development code, the language throughout the entire development code. I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear. The other piece is a lot more public involvement and then a lot more technical resources once you're looking.
Yeah, I get the research, I'm just looking at the.
Yeah.
What are we doing with it all? Is it just, like, if we choose to do everything in B,
Mhm.
is the only thing we're not doing, sort of working on rezoning and new zones?
No, and it's my lack of understanding exactly what all the issues are. I, only had a brief conversation with staff about it, so I'm sure there are a lot more key issue items that you'd like to look at that aren't reflected in here.
Okay, because it says 3 to 4 key issues. Both of them say 3 to 4 key issues. So if there's a lot more key issues, then something's missing from this description of scenario C. It
Yes,
says
and
the same number of key issues.
3 to 4 more.
Right,
3 to 4 more?
I would
Is it
say
8 to
yes,
10? Or is
and
it
that would
6 to
be,
10?
that would be your group discussing and putting forward those key issues, and I'm sorry that I wasn't aware of those or didn't ask further questions.
But is
about
this what
that.
it means, 6 to 8 instead of 3 to 4?
So it would look a lot more like instead of addressing a single subsection, we're addressing multiple connected subsections. So things like all of the residential districts or industrial standards. Those would, or the entire design review chapter, instead of just multifamily standards, the entire design review chapter.
Mhm.
So
It-
you're
it's
gonna
very
be
hard-
encompassing
yeah.
a lot more content and a lot more of the city area, which is why the public involvement is so key.
It's just
Honestly-
very hard for me to opine on anything because it's so big. It's like 3 to 4. If we saw the 3 to 4 and then we saw the 6 to 8. I don't know.
So, I don't know if she sent a copy to the.
We
staff.
have a copy, I mean, that was given by the, committee.
We can pass out
It was
this.
passed, carried on both.
Okay, great. Passed, and they have, you know, they're basically their priority 1, 2, 3, which is scenario A, B, C. But, you know, it's like, where do their priorities fit in? Everything in priority 1 doesn't fit in A, and everything in priority 2 doesn't fit in B. And everything in priority 3, you know, there's kind of,
Yeah.
some go here and some go there, and
Okay,
And
this,
so
this I don't
we're-
understand. This
This
very
is what we talked about.
this is, now we're looking at how
Pass
we
it down.
get scenario
Got the short one.
A to be our priority 1.
Mhm.
How do we get it scenario B to be our priority 2?
Everything
Yeah, and we
for-
can right size it to this, I haven't seen this
Right.
list,
Yeah,
so.
well, staff apparently hasn't seen it either, and that's what I'm just saying is that I would like to, you know, take this list and say, oh, wait a minute, this is more involvement, you know, this is gonna take some more time, so this needs to be down in priority 3 and not up at 1. Because we're not the ones that know what all it takes, we're the ones that wanna get it changed, you know, so that's what we're concerned about doing, so. Staff is going to have to educate us and say, well, that's a great one, but that needs to be over here, you know, that shouldn't be up here. But we, you know, and this, I'm sure this is not a comprehensive on everything that we've discussed over the time, but these are some key points in here. But, you know, as we try to get issues resolved, I'd like to see them be done sooner than later.
So it might help to say that when I start a code project, you know, we'll know what the scope is before we start it, right? We'll have an agreement on that. It always starts with an audit, a code audit. So I would be going through the sections that we've agreed upon, or if it's the entire code and we're starting there with some keys, but we'd be just opening the entire code and making a table in like this section, you know. So we would take whatever these priorities are that planning commission subcommittee has made and stick that into this, whatever scenario the city decides to fund and whatever time frame, and we'd make it fit that, so that I'm not concerned about that. The legislative priorities you spoke to, and then specific key items here. I do want to just point out from the memo, page 4, right now until January 2nd of 2032, there is a prohibition against not allowing first floor residential, or you can prohibit residential uses. You can't prohibit residential uses on the first floor except for one face of a building that faces the street and is within 20 feet of the street. And you can't prohibit a use that is non-residential active uses that support the residential uses of the building, including lobbies, daycare, passenger loading, community rooms, exercise facilities, offices, and activity spaces, which sounds like what you're describing from Greenlight. So right now, another development like that could come in and they would be able to get an adjustment to do exactly what Greenlight did, and the city wouldn't be able to say no until 2032.
Luckily,
So,
we don't have much land, otherwise that could be.
They can do all C1. all residential.
Mhm.
Yeah, but, yeah. There's not a lot of that, there is.
But there is a
Like
lot of,
and everything, but that took years.
it sounds like there is a lot of city activity and investment on creating that commercial node along C1. So that has good effects too on bringing in commercial uses and employment uses. So those pieces can be part of the puzzle too, not only land use, but we aren't able to preclude it right now.
So
Is there something that says that we can up the percentage of the main floor?
Not for that specific, the non-residential uses of the building itself, but
That's in C1.
in anywhere there's mixed use, anywhere there's,
Matter if you zone a commercial or industrial, or whatever.
if mixed use is,
Come in,
if mixed use is permitted.
if it's,
Mhm.
Just get rid of mixed use.
yeah.
So Heather.
Yes.
When I look at this, like, it does seem to align with the priorities that we talked about, so, like, this resonates with me. Nowhere on here is rezone and new zone. So is there a way that we could take this, meld it with your scenario B or C,
Mhm.
but not have the rezone and new zone? 'Cause I don't really think that
There's one-
that's not like changing zone, like adjusting things within a zone, but I don't think you have anything on here that's new zone, rezone.
There's a new zone, but not we're not rezoning the stuff that's on the north. We're just gonna leave it as is.
Right.
We just talked about.
I had heard that one of the priorities was to look at the IPU zone and perhaps think of that as an overlay again. And so then everything that's in IPU would need a rezone. So so that's one of the places
Need
where,
a rezone or just go back to the original zone? That's not really a rezone, you're just you put the IPU on top of it, just take the IPU off and make it an overlay and then lay it back. It's still the underlying zones.
well, those zones are gone
That's
because
just
we made a new zone. So we would be rezoning it to, but you could use your prior zones. It would be technically a rezone. That's how it, yeah, it would be a zoning map amendment. Yeah. And then the same thing with, in C, if you wanted to do anything different, I know it sounds like that's probably not the priority. And then if you wanted any kind of mixed use zone, which I heard possibly as well.
Well, as far as mixed use, I mean, there's, as we look forward to any expansion, we're talking about
Yes.
completely revamping the ideas of the old city. I mean, now we have industrials that have restaurants, we have, commercials that have, different things that, residential. And so all of a sudden, all those are really mixed zones.
Yeah.
Because that's the way things have changed over the years, it's not cookie cutter like it was.
That's very much the way that Euclidean zoning is kind of disappearing in most places. Yeah, yeah. So would none of this addresses future expansion areas, right? Or would we be using this to set ourselves
Well, I
up?
think we're using it to set it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, one thing is they're multifamily, our multifamily is fairly weak as far as apartment houses, or anything like that, because we've never really dealt with apartment house. And now there's an apartment house, but it doesn't have anything to do with our mixed use or with a multifamily. It's, they kind of on their own scenario through the state of Oregon. So, there's a few pieces of land that could be apartment houses. Some might need to be rezoned, but in any expansion, we're definitely gonna have to consider that because those are gonna be what's gonna be in there.
So updating design standards
Yeah.
for. Particularly in expansion areas, but also in some areas of existing.
Yeah.
zoning.
That all does have to do with future expansion,
Mhm.
right? So
Well, that's what, everything we do today is to plan for tomorrow.
Mhm.
there's only a couple items that doesn't have. The non-conforming sign stuff and a couple of rezones. It's really the changes in the existing, the rest of it has to do with the future.
I see street standards are in here, so, TSP overlap and, engineering standards, transportation implications, that sort of thing, so, really bringing in additional, groups on that would be important.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is the street standards, all you have to do is drive around.
Mhm.
And where you have parking on both sides and you can't get two cars down the middle, that's not a very good standard. Yeah. Yeah, through an intersection, yeah, so they're in hodgepodge on sidewalks. And some running into telephone poles and some having, stop guards and some not having them, and, yeah, so I know that's engineering and that's public works and that's, the transportation plan stuff, but it sure be nice to, well, we've already discussed the whole idea of those plans coming to us before they, city projects and stuff, but, you need to make sure that people are looking out for the future and what it's gonna look like after it's done instead of what it looks like on paper.
When it says increased rooftop requirements for park spaces, that the parks master plan and how much parks per
Per house.
household?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So really it's Parks Board, it's Public Works, it's every piece of the city that works together. It's not a development code change, it's the whole city update.
It's comprehensive.
It is comprehensive. Okay.
We should plan.
Staff, what do you need for, do you need more information for what you're tasked with?
Yeah. So I think we will need to go back and do some reconciliation with the materials that we prepared in this list that we received from you all tonight. And then we will likely come back to you in March and hope that we've hit the nail on the head with
Well,
a,
you might consider trying to, have a meeting with Heather Levante before those things too, just so that as she's the chair of the subcommittee, that these aren't a surprise.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to waste your time either, we want to get to the goal all together and not go, oh, we did this and, oh, we did this, and now we got to see how they fit.
we can
I would recommend
absolutely speak with Heather in the meantime between meetings.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we will want to come back to you with a proposal that will be suitable for you to then
Apparently we have a
go
lot of time.
to city council with a request
Right.
to move this project forward.
Yeah, we don't have a problem still doing the committee and kind of coming up with some of the stuff and doing some of it and then coming before everybody to save some dollars. And, and do a little bit of time that way too, so whatever, so.
Can we speed this faster if we have a motion or speak about what we would recommend in terms of saying, yeah, we would recommend 1 or 1 + 2 or 1 + 2 + 3 here, and then have staff work to size those and put those in front of city council in March.
I think that's what she's talking right now of doing is how do we blend
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 into ABC? And make sure that we're all on the same page, because we need to be educated about this item in 1 needs to be down in 3.
Yeah, and I think
Involvement, that's the process, so.
that, one just small concern is, with, the memo I put together, it had like maybe 2 things in priority 1 in addition to legislative changes, and we've got like 7 or 8 here, so is it in order of priority to the PC?
Kind of how it is, yeah.
Okay, so
Try to
top priority, design review and mixed use, and then non-conforming, okay, I'll read it that way. I think that works.
Yes, so we can work on that and then bring this to you in March.
And
Or,
that means we miss city council.
It was already scheduled for the second meeting, right?
yes, so If we then wanted to do another work session, or we could bring this as a discussion item for city council, so I'll let you chime in on when we have availability for this project to
So,
come to
so
them.
just a moment, but first of all, I think what we'd like to put forth is, we're looking for a scenario C or 3. And that's what we need to address city council with, not the prioritizing with city council right now. Because we're looking at doing the whole thing.
Right.
I don't think that's, is that what the planning commission all, I mean,
Well, I think that's ultimately what we want, but
how do we need to prioritize to get to A, B, or C?
I think what I'm hearing is everything on here moves into scenario C, and then we update the scope a little bit, probably closer to this 200K budget. That's more Steve Faust's department, so I'll run it by him, but we probably can update and be ready if that's the.
get some money from the state.
They like to give money for housing projects, if we could pull out the housing
go,
stuff
do it.
first.
Yep.
We could focus it based on what the
We'll
project.
just throw the rest in.
What I'm hearing from this body is that you would like us to look at a comprehensive update and come back with what that would look like. And then as a sort of contingency, also have in our pocket, a phased, we can break this up like this. So that if city council is not ready to fund a full code update, we can present them with something like phase 1, which would look maybe more like A or B on Heather's memo. And that being a way to figure out what our next steps are. Is our next step going out and initiating a fully fledged code update, or is our next step taking a bite at our top 3 priorities and legislative changes? And determining what level of resources we have available, what those next steps are going to be.
So my concern is that we can see how long this full blown thing could take, right?
Yes.
And if we don't get on it now, are we gonna make it by the time UGB gets here? Or are we gonna be stuck with what we've got? And then what was the point?
What if we approach it slightly different with city council and say, hey, here's our top priorities. And then here's all the other things that didn't make our line from your original list that we had, like, old trees or whatever, right? There was a bunch of stuff on there. There was floodplain. There was a bunch of stuff on there that didn't make this list. Well, what if we take this list and say, this is our priority? And then here are all the things that are priority number 2. And sort of presented in that way where we're there is a list of things we're not planning to do. Because you had a very long list. Many of those things are not on.
I think that was stats list.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah.
So I've provided you both with a list of staff concerns, and I've also provided you with the full code breakdown for visualization purposes. I'm not entirely sure which lists you're referring to. But yes, there are a number of things which cannot reasonably be addressed in a quick update. They will need to be addressed in a full
And those things
comprehensive
we could
update.
put below the line. We could just say, hey, this is priority number 2, so that when city council looks at it, they at least know there's some things we're not doing. And we're not telling them we want to do everything.
That information could be conveyed. I think that's,
We want to do everything, but here's the things, we're not gonna do floodplain, we're not gonna do trees, we're not gonna do
Why not?
Well,
We can still get it in there.
Basics is we're asking for a budget of $200,000. If it gets us,
Stretch over
if it gets us through all the things, then great.
Yeah.
It's 36 months. I mean, if the scenario C is 36 months basically to do all those things.
Apply for grants and.
Apply for some grants along the way, maybe we can keep going. And it's 48 months that we get the whole list there, so.
And when do you expect a small city code?
small cities code, I believe they're expecting July or August.
And can I get a little bit of clarification on that code? That's just recommendation for small cities, and we can meld it how
Yes.
we
Yes.
want
It can be right sized to North Plains.
have to do,
You don't have
unless
to,
you just adopt.
exactly, you don't have to, but
Okay.
in parts where you don't really care, like, okay, we just wanna comply with, something that's something we don't care about, then you wanna just like put that language in, because you know that language has been vetted and meets all state requirements, and you can just move forward.
Well, we also talked about robbing other people's code too.
We don't call it robbing, we call it borrowing, honoring, like their hard work, honoring their hard work by gratuitously using their information. No, we always look to, we call them peer cities. Yeah, we always look to peer cities. Hillsborough has the best lighting standards out there. I use them all the time. Other cities have better tree codes and things. So they know that that's happening, and that is part of the game. I hope North Plains code is someday an inspiration for other cities as well.
Okay.
You need
So-
anything else from us?
I think Heather and I will get together. We will put together the proposal for something that looks like scenario 3, highlighting what a long-term full spectrum ask will be. And then we will come back for, if this body want to hear from that final information gathering before going to city council, or would you want to move directly to city council?
When is I thought somebody mentioned that there was already something scheduled for city council, is there not?
There is not anything scheduled for city council. We would need to put that on the
Okay,
schedule.
so there's no deadline for what we're doing. One will do.
Correct.
I apologize. I don't know why I thought I heard second meeting in
Yeah, I
March.
thought,
That's my mistake.
I think we were aiming, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
not scheduled. So if this body would like to hear, I think it being such a short month, February, we could easily bring this back to you guys at your next regular session, and then aim for the second meeting in March or the first meeting in April to have this before city council. I think that's a reasonable timeline.
Session after the meeting next time.
If the chair is so
right,
pleased.
I mean, I thought was our understanding is that we were gonna do another work session in March after you do a revision of this.
Yep.
Right, okay.
We'll put that on the agenda,
Get together with Heather about it. Figure that.
and we will work with Heather in the meantime to make sure we're on the right track.
Heather Lamont.
Heather
Levante.
Levante, yeah.
Not confusing at all.
Heather.
Yes.
Okay, then anything else for the workshop then? Okay, with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you all too.